All right, hey Amplify Leaders, it's Nathan here, and finally getting to you with this training. And so it's my apologies in getting it so late. You're also probably wondering what these beautiful marks are on my face. That was from yesterday. Last night was the Hunger Games, and so yeah, kind of went down that way. Ran into a tree, sort of, and so you should see the tree. I got the worst of it. Nonetheless, I wanted to talk to you guys about the discipleship plan. We've been talking about different things as far as what we're wanting to do moving forward, and we've alluded to things, and we've talked about what we will be implementing on Wednesday nights. But I kind of wanted to talk briefly with you guys, about what we're looking from you guys. Really, what we're hoping to see occur within our adult leaders. And first of all, you guys are awesome. You guys are the best. I was talking to another youth pastor recently, and I was talking about how blessed I have been since I've gotten here 4.5 years ago, and how there's always just been an awesome team of adults. And I feel that even upon the course of my time here, that God is pulling an amazing team together even now. The last few weeks, we have even more commitments from those open and willing to serve on Wednesdays. We've been able to do some exciting things on Sundays. The third hour of worship service, second hour of Sunday morning small groups has grown. We've actually had to split up the guys because we're growing there, and that's exciting. And we're going to be able to roll some things around with teachers. And so things are going good. Things are awesome. You guys just knock it out of the park. And you're doing so much, and we really want to give you guys more tools, give you guys more to help you do a better job of what your heart and pulse is, which is discipling students and seeing students come to know the Lord and seeing students become more dedicated to Him. And that's our heartbeat too. So for those who were there a few weeks ago when we had lunch, I want to share a couple stats. These are the elements that have been kind of ruminating within me and Michelle and some of the other leadership team as we've talked about what do we do, how can we do a better job. Just to be completely candid, when I first came here, my only experience as far as being even within the leadership role of student ministry was being a small group leader myself for about 6 months, and then I was serving, or I guess it was about 8 to 10 months. Then I was serving at First Baptist Pompano in a part-time role, but I was the games guy, I was the relationship guy, I was the hangout guy. So when I moved over to Park Ridge part-time, I was learning things on the fly, and it is what it is. That was the place that God had me here, and the journey was maybe not formal education. I ended up doing a lot of stuff on my own ability, just based upon what I wanted to do, based upon control issues probably, and just a lot of things kind of went through me, and I was the decision maker, I was the speaker, I was the everything, and I always knew that was an issue, and that's just not how it should have been, but I wasn't willing, I wasn't transparent enough, I wasn't open enough, vulnerable enough really to correct it. And so this has been something that God has been working through within me. Certainly being married helps, and you get exposed and you see all the different aspects of you. But it also applies to ministry in that it's okay, let's be real. Let me evaluate where my heart is at, where I'm at, where are we as a ministry as a whole. And with some of the stats and some of the things that we're hearing, how do we do a better job? So this is that was just to kind of give you a background of my heart in saying, hey, I know how things were. And if some of you have been here the whole time, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's why I'm excited about moving forward and putting the ball in your court because of these things. So these were some stats on millennials, Barna Research. So Barna, very reputable researching source. It says 59% of millennials are leaving the church. So 59% of millennials leaving the church. Now, the students in our youth group are not millennials. They're Generation Z. But the trend would show that would hypothetically be higher, that there would be more than 59% leaving the church. So why is that? The actual unchurched number of millennials went from 44% to 52% over the last decade. So those who claim to be unchurched went from 44% to 52%. So most of millennials not just are leaving the church, they claim to be completely unchurched. More so, they don't want to identify with any type of church establishment, church identification. It's a big deal. It's an alarming stat. It's an alarming trend. And so they did some further studies and how it applied to youth. And this is what Barna said. It says the fact that teens lack commitment due to general busyness, which was referenced in the study, so students are just general. So their lack of commitment due to general busyness and the broad scarcity of student leaders suggests that engagement and relationships in church are not reaching sufficient depth. So they kind of said, okay, there's a lot of busyness that's going on, and also there's a lack of student leaders. Because of this lack of leadership, specifically student leaders, we're seeing a lack of depth in the church. And when there is no root, there is no growth. And so there is no roots, there's no attachment, there's no growth. So by the time they get on to make their own decisions, they leave the church and they're infiltrated with all these different worldviews and viewpoints, religions, those type of things that we're concerned about. So obviously we hear these things and we go, man, what is our reaction? What is our call? What do we do? And so that certainly spurred on what we're doing on the Wednesday night change up. Don't know what quite the word would be. But as we're moving this upcoming Wednesday into doing pods, so points of discipleship, student-led small groups is essentially what it is. But side note, we do want to make sure that we call those pods on Wednesdays not small groups, because small groups are what our adults do on Sunday mornings. That's what you guys do on Sunday. So we want to make sure that those are two different things, that they're not confused. So pods, whether we think it's a dumb name or not, it's going to be what we use. So Wednesday, the pods are going to help approach this. Engage student leaders, for them to be leaders, for them to actually take leadership role and help provide more depth as a whole. But also, we know that we are confident in applying this, because when we were talking about discipleship on the Wednesday night series, launching into this change, we talked about multiplying. We're called to make disciples. Great Commissions, go make disciples. We're called to do that, and it's called to be rapid multiplication. So what does that look like? And we kind of narrowed it down to two things as we're looking into Scripture. Disciples model and teach. So we talked about modeling and teaching. So modeling, essentially just living out what God has called us to do, fleshing it out, living the right way, right conduct, being consistent, people seeing it, something distinctively Christian, different, that type of thing. So disciple is going to be one who models it, lives it. And then also it's someone who teaches it, someone who is actively teaching. St. Francis of Assisi, the famous quote, if share the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. And there's a good heart there, which is, hey, my actions and who I am is going to share the gospel, but we also need to teach the gospel. So we said modeling and teaching. Now, we are confident our students will be able to do these pods on Wednesdays, because you guys have been doing both of these elements already. You've been modeling it, you've been living it out, and you've also been showing them within the model of how to function in a small group. So they know what that looks like, and you've also actively actually been teaching them. So those two elements are true, and that we know that we can get them to engage confidently. It'll be clunky, I'm sure. There will be an element of getting things up and running, but we think we can do that because of what you guys have already done. But what is the next step for us? What are we called to do? What am I called personally to do? The goal in time is to give these student leaders, because they've seen it modeled and taught, small groups. The goal is in time, in 6 months, for them to not just take their student group of 5, but then to find their one, maybe 2, but certainly 1, and say, I'm going deeper with that person. I want to go deeper with that person based upon the model that we see with Christ and the disciples in the New Testament. And the reason why we want to do that is we want to be faithful to Scripture and what Christ has called us to do. But here's my charge to you, and here's my heart. Here's what this training, here's what this aspect of our ministry is, and here's what I'm asking of you. In order for our students to do that in 6 months, they're going to need to see it modeled just the same. They need to see it from us as disciples, and I include myself in this. Our hope is that over the next 6 months, as we roll into the fall, when we try to get our students to engage in a one-on-one discipleship, that they will have seen it because we're doing it with them, that we are fleshing it out. And so what I'm asking in our charge is that we would, over the next 6 months, and in the next session we'll kind of talk specifically what we're looking for in the short term, but that we would choose a student, one student, potentially more, potentially 2, but that would be the most. 3 would probably the max. I don't see how 3 could be effective. Of going in further intentional discipleship with one student. And so we're going to outline a little bit of what that looks like, but I just want to give you 3 pieces right now to give you the why and what we're doing and the purpose behind it. And so one of the books that I've been reading, The Lost Art of Disciple Making, this is a book that Pastor Dale gave me as he's been discipling me and Steve Goldberg. And so it's all about what we're trying to implement. So it's been very timely, very pertinent. So very thankful to Daryl for that. But specifically, when talking about making disciples, one-on-one intentional discipleship, there is a lot of stuff out there, a lot of research, a lot of techniques, tools, but why are we doing this? Why are we wondering, asking for you guys to do this? And he kind of boiled it down to three things as he looked at Jesus Christ, as he looked at Christ moving into this direction of discipleship. When we see him on the cross, he says, tetelestai, which is, it is finished. Okay, so we know that. And what he means by it is finished is the act of redemption was completed. His work was done. But he also says, I have finished the work that you gave me to do. He says, I have finished the work that you gave me to do. And he says that, Christ says it on the cross, before he actually says it is finished, the act of redemption. So what was his work that was completed even before he actually sacrificed his life? And so the author, and what we see from Scripture, this was kind of a revelation for me, was that his ministry, his work, the purpose why he was there was finished. His purpose was the disciples. His purpose was setting them up because he was getting ready to die, get resurrected, finish the work of completion, go back up into heaven, and his disciples were going to be the ones that were going to go, and they were going to be the ones that were going to do. His ministry was training those 12 because those 12 were going to go and change the world, and we see the fruits of their labor. So in a sense, while Jesus' ministry touched thousands upon thousands, we think of the big miracles where he fed the 4,000, 5,000. His ministry touched thousands. He healed. He did all these active things, but his purpose to an extent was to train disciples to go and do the work of the cross, which was the church. That's us. Like, we're here to do the same thing. And if that's how Jesus viewed it, we need to do the same thing as far as how we train our students. And you guys have been training them through helping on Wednesdays, through training and teaching small groups on Sunday morning. But there's another step, and this is what we're calling one-on-one discipleship. A student. Who are you thinking? What's the purpose and why? So I want to give you three things to help you kind of get going on that. And we kind of want to use these three things as the importance of it. And there's three principles they talked about that Jesus went through. And I want you to think about that moving forward as we're going to ask you guys to put down names. Who do you want to disciple? The first thing, principle of selection. The principle of selection when talking about discipleship and disciple making is that Jesus didn't just flippantly choose 12, right? He knew who they were. It's not just because he knew who they were because he's Jesus. He had spent time in Galilee. He had some interaction with these guys. Some of the disciples had actually already been followers before. He knew them, and he was calling for a specific purpose. He was selecting the right ones, and he had a very diverse, unique group. He had Simon the Zealot, who was very much against overthrowing the Roman Empire. He also had Matthew the tax collector, who was this corrupt worker of the Roman Empire. So we had this broad array of guys, but he was selecting them purposefully because he knew the work that he had for them to do. One of the things the point makes is that it's very easy sometimes for us to select and choose those that we find it most easy, but Jesus had some roughnecks around him. I mean, he had some crazies. And so it's also valuable for us to choose the one that maybe some wouldn't choose. And so be thinking about that. But Jesus was very selective in who he chose. Not just selective in that they were the right type of person, but someone that he was confident they could go and replicate, that he could go and do. It's valuable for us to train someone that we know the time and investment as best as we can, that we feel faithful, that they will then go and do the same thing further. It would be terrible to be doing this type of disciple making in someone's life, and then they just totally walk away from the faith. Now, we're not saying don't reach out, but we're saying when you think about someone that you're ready to disciple, someone who can go and be active and do, man, that's what we're looking for. Second is the principle of association. He discipled his disciples by being in their life, by being associated with them. Doing life with them is the term that we hear often. But that's what he did. And that's what we're looking for me. I need to do that. Also from you guys. the principle of association, doing life with our students. We do it here at church. We rub shoulders with them on Wednesdays and Sundays, and that's good. We have different events, Hunger Games, camps, those type of things. And we create bonds through that association. But we can do more. Can't we do more? Can't we be more involved in their life? The beauty of technology is that we can be pretty involved and not necessarily have to be at every game, be at every sporting event, be at every rehearsal. I'm trying to think of the musical word, like when they do, their final singing and stuff. I don't even know. Not my world. That's why I said game. Nonetheless, like, we're not going to be able to be at all those things, but we can still be connected. And so when we're here, when we're with them, are we associated with them? Are we doing life with them? Are we a part of their lives? Jesus was invested in their lives. I mean, he was invested in their lives. So do we do that? Are we serving them? He was modeling them what it looks like by being associated with them in life, because he knew he was getting ready to leave. And when he left, they had a working example of what it was. Do we associate ourselves in that same manner? And then the third principle is the principle of instruction. Jesus didn't just do life with them and show them what it is, right? So he selected the right crew that he wanted. He associated himself with them, and he lived life with them, but he also taught them. He also instructed them. And you guys do that. We do that on Sunday mornings. We do that on Wednesdays. And you guys are going to help instruct our student leaders. But we want to make sure that there is also time where we really do give you guys a chance to do that. Certainly, small group leaders are kind of already doing that, but we want to do that in a specific one-on-one setting. And so this third one is probably something we're already doing, and we have an element of these other two in place. Your students have been selected for you, so there's selection, and you do associate with them at some level, so there's association. But how can we get even more narrow? How can we get even more fine-tuned? How can we go even deeper with these elements? And because of these three aspects, we're going to take them and move forward into a specific plan. We want to give you guys a track to run off of. And so I would ask that you would kind of move through to the second part of this training so that you can see exactly what that plan is. This, more so the groundwork and the why, the next session, telling you what it is, what we're looking for, some tips, some pointers, a little bit more practical. But we want you to understand this is our heartbeat, because we want to reach these students. And we know that students floundering on their own, this happened last night at the Hunger Games. We had a girl, Jasmine Lozado. She's somewhat connected. I recognize the face. I remember hearing her name before, and she comes some on Wednesdays, and that's it. She had a bit of a health issue at the end of the night. Everything's fine. She has a bit of a heart thing, and so she isn't fed and a lot of water. If she starts running, she gets real shaky, real weak. And so she had an episode, followed up with it and stuff. But through this, it ended up, took us to the hospital. She had a bit of an anxiety attack. Again, totally fine. She's okay. She just kind of bottomed out, and her body helped her recover. But the only reason why I know her name for sure, the only reason why I know what grade she's in and some of these other elements is because some of our adult leaders saw that she was shaking and that something was wrong. And that's what triggered me getting to know her. Like, that's how I have her number now. Like, that's how, I've reached out to that group of students that she was with, that I was working with through this event. Man, it's probably not supposed to be like that. How often do I think in my ministry here where I hear of a student struggling with this has happened, it's so reactive. Similar to last night. Man, you're hurt, you're struggling, you're shaking. Hey, what do I need to do? And now it's like, how do I set these things right? But that's the only reason why I know who her mom is. It's the only reason why I have her number and her friend's number. Like, I need to do better. And we want to be proactive. And we want to, as best as we can, we're not going to reach every single student in one-on-one. We don't have that many adults. But we can start to model this. And if we're modeling this with our students, they will start doing it with the students that they've been given. That's a whole lot better than the zero that I've been doing now. And I think that's a track that we can run on to do some really, really cool things. So I'm thankful for you guys. Let's go ahead and go to the next portion of this training and get a little bit more specific and practical on how we can do